Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in once again to the dungeon of the Doctors of Doom, where I'm your host, Alex the Shark Sparks, and joining me this week is just one esteemed colleague, the Honorable Dr. Vincent Sanducci, PhD, Esquire. How's it going, Vin?
Hey, it's nice that I'm the one that shows up for a change versus, my, 3 week hiatus I had there a couple weeks ago. So
Yeah,
things are good.
short intro there. Obviously, you know Mitch today. Where he is, we don't know. He's just not here. Welcome in, Delvers. Forgot to say that part. Yeah, just I had written more, but it kind of got all out the window when Mitch wasn't here. It's also going to change what I wanted to talk about today. We'll make it work though. But welcome in everybody. Lot of NFL free agent news. That's probably what we're going to be talking about. There have been some last minute trades, players released, players re-signed, and of course, new free agent signings. So a lot to cover this week. We'll probably keep it NFL themed, at least I assume so. Vinny, is there anything that jumps off the page at you that you've been raring up to talk about? If not, I'll go into what I had planned.
No, I think it's kind of an exciting sports time, even though it's kind of weird. NFL free agency is fun. The draft, you've got March Madness coming up. NBA playoffs are kind of coming up soon. So it's a great time to be a sports fan. Rather than that period of time where all you have is regular season baseball, which is the worst time to be a sports fan.
All right. Well, speaking of March Madness, I guess we'll get that out of the way first. Us being Auburn fans, how do you feel about Auburn losing a couple of times down the stretch, including losing Alabama and Baker Mazzara getting himself thrown out of a game for punching a guy?
Yeah, that was tough. I think the two losses in a row was a little hard. I think Bama's a very good team. I mean, they're easily one of the top five teams in the country. So losing on a last second floater when I didn't think Auburn played very well is fine. Um, I had a hot take on via text like about a month ago that I think Chad Baker Mazzara. If anybody ever follows Auburn, you're probably not going to know this guy if you don't follow him. But I just think Chad Baker Mazzara is a more talented version of KD Johnson. And now I feel like I disrespected KD Johnson in that, and I'm sorry, Katie, because you did not have these issues. And Chad, if I'm Bruce Pearl, I do not know how you don't just bench Chad Baker Mazzara at some point in time. I'm not sure how many flagrants he's had this year, but I know in games that I've watched, that's at least his third or fourth. He also got ejected in the first round within the first like 2 or 3 minutes of the first round game of March Madness last year. I'm kind of over his shenanigans, to be honest. And they're blatant. They're blatant, like dirty, cheap shots, and I've never been a fan of that.
Yeah, he's
It's
got
okay
he's got
getting like
real
in like a
bad.
little cheap shot, but
Sorry, yeah, he's got real bad disciplinary issues. But at this point, like you said, like if you were going to do something, it's kind of too late. I mean, he's going to be suspended probably for at least a couple of games in the SEC tourney, and then are you really going to bench a guy in March Madness? Because we just talked about that floater where we lost to Bama. That was in overtime. Really bad defensive play where we didn't swap and we should have. Guy got a floater in the lane, made it to win. And I figure if Chad Baker Mazzara plays more in that game because he gets ejected pretty early, we probably don't even go to overtime. We probably just win it outright, right? Because like he's one of our starters. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's like, he's not like an like super top 5-star amazing player, but he's a starter on the number one team in the country. So losing him definitely makes a change in the outcome of that basketball game.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And I don't know if you've watched some of the other games, but the way that a flagrant works in college basketball is it's two shots and the ball every time. Um, and he's done. I'm trying really hard not to swear for the pod, but he's done this crap multiple times in close games where all of a sudden the team gets two free throws in the ball, and he does it on offense, he does it on defense. So it's just a huge swing in momentum and for these games. And anybody that watches college basketball, March Madness is anybody's ball game. You just can't. It's almost like he's too big of a risk to have in the game if the game's close. But his talent is there. Like the Auburn's worse without him on the court. But I don't know. He's a very big conundrum for Bruce Pearl. It's interesting to see how they're going to handle that moving forward. I assume he just plays, and I don't know. He's kind of rubbed me the wrong way all year long. So
Yeah,
uh,
I think Pearl's kind of backed himself into a corner here just because like there's not much you can do to him now because it's tournament time and he's a senior. So like it's not like you can threaten playing time next season. It's not like you can you can bench him this season, but then you're risking, the chance to play for the chip. And I don't think that's not fair to anybody on the squad. That's the problem. Like, it's like, yeah, sure, maybe Baker should be riding the bench to learn a lesson, but like teaching him that lesson is going to negatively affect all the other guys out there who are balling, who aren't making these dumb mistakes, who aren't being, bad character guys. So like that would really, like, if you're a guy like a Janai Broom or a Pettiford or a Miles Kelly, like whoever it is, the other guys on the team, that's what I'm naming. If you're one of these guys and all of a sudden one of your starters gets sat, benched by your coach going into the tournament and you lose, like that's really going to punish you when you did nothing wrong.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's always the hardest part, especially when you're talking about superstar playoffs in the crunch time. Like, it's one thing if you did this mid-season. You can't. I mean, you could theoretically do it in the SEC tournament. I don't think it's going to hurt their seeding all too much. I really don't care if they're the number one overall, number two. At the end of the day, you still have to beat all these great teams to get there. I like Auburn's chances just as good as anybody else. I think from a basketball perspective, it's some of the most up in the air March Madness that I remember in recent history, where Duke and Auburn are probably the two best easily, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are equally as good, which makes it for a lot more of exciting March Madness in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we got the March Madness out of the way. I'm going to go into the game that I was going to talk about, and that is NFL free agency. Specifically, we're going to do a little role play here. Vinny, not that kind. Don't get too excited. We're going to do general manager role play, because you and I, we've had some discussions via text in our group chat about some of these free agent moves or trades or what have you that like are real head scratchers that just don't make a lot of sense. So we're gonna kind of play a devil's advocate, where one of us is going to be the GM that has to defend the actions we've made, and the other is going to be an outsider who is going to talk about what they would have done differently and why those actions were incorrect. And just for clarity, if you're the GM, you must defend every action. You can't pick and choose which ones you like. Like, the GM has to defend them all, and the outsider has to be against them all. So you can't be like, oh, well, I like this move, not that one. That's not how the game works. And I was going to pit you against Mitch, since I'm the one that kind of wrote this, but we'll do me versus you here, okay. I guess.
That's fair.
So one of the teams that I will let you choose which side of the coin you want to take here. We'll start with the 49ers. Do you want to be the incumbent general manager, John Lynch, or do you want to be the outsider? And I will tell you what the big moves we can discuss are. But you tell me which one you want to be.
I'll be the incumbent. I'll be the GM.
Okay. So you as GM, here's the few of the highlight moves that have happened. There have been a lot more than this, but these are the kind of the major ones that have happened. Okay. So you traded away Deebo Samuel. You released Juszczyk, the fullback, excuse me. You signed Demarcus Robinson to a $9 million deal when he's got a pending DUI case. He's a wide receiver. And then you re-signed Jordan Mason, but only for 1 year. So, and the running back who basically played the whole season because CMC was out. So, tell me, Vinny, go ahead and start. Defend yourself. Tell me why those moves were good for your 49ers organization.
Yeah, you know what? I think we're at the point where I'm on Brock Purdy's rookie contract. I have to give him a big deal. I don't have a choice. Deebo wants to get paid. Ayuk wants to get paid. We've paid defensive players a lot of money over the most recent years, and we were fully stocked. We were loaded for last year, and we finished last place in the NFC West. We went 6-11. I think at this point in time, I need to prioritize that. I believe Purdy is our future. We need to keep him around and then figure out how to build the roster around him. And we just couldn't do that with the current roster. And so we're just kind of hitting that. I don't want to call it a full rebuild because we still have a lot of talent in the room, but we also believe in our coaching staff. And I just think it's time to hit that reset button on some of these aging players. And yeah, we got rid of a lot of big names, but we trust our ability to keep some stuff in-house and develop players. Why do you think we have a defensive line carousel that's always super successful in this league? And it's because we develop our players really well. And with Purdy and Ayuk, we didn't draft Pearsall to sit on the bench. We took him as our first overall pick last year, and we want him playing. And if you actually take a deep dive into Deebo's statistics, he's not that good. He's not that good. We got all his money off the books. he ranks in bottom percentiles of separation and the way he's able to do things. And he's a gadget player. I just don't want him on our team anymore for the money he wanted. Simple as that.
Okay, I do have one follow-up question, just because I thought this was interesting. The Jordan Mason and also Patrick Taylor, running back, both got re-signed to one-year deals. What's the deal with only giving them 1 year? Because your starting running back, CMC, had to go overseas to get experimental surgeries on both his legs for issues that he had, and only played a couple of games last season. Surely the wheels are about to fall off of that man. So why only give these guys 1 year deals? I mean, Jordan Mason absolutely balled out, in that role last year. Why not give them longer term deals?
So I will correct you a little bit on Jordan Mason. He is actually still on his rookie contract. We just tendered him for second round, where if he does hot sign with somebody else, he's a restricted free agent. So we just kind of tendered him for the year that we get a second rounder if someone else signs him. So we believe in Jordan Mason. We also just are trying to keep things cheap right now. We'll look at re-signing him to a longer deal in the future, but he's too valuable for our team given injuries to Christian McCaffrey.
But you talk about keeping
right
things
now.
cheap, and then you gave a 2-year, $9.5 million deal to DeMarcus Robinson, who we don't even know if he's going to play.
Yeah, but I mean, the Rams gave Tutu Atwell a 1 year, $10 million deal. So I would argue that we got DeMarcus on a discount.
Fair enough. All right, well, I'm going to take the opposite side of that. You talked about Debo being old and his stats aren't that great. Stats aren't everything. Now, stats are important, absolutely, but anyone who knows statistics knows you can usually find or manipulate statistics to send the message and tell the story you want to tell. So while Debo may not be as good statistically as people might expect him to be, the fact that he is that Swiss Army knife and can fill every role, that's what makes him dangerous. The fact that Debo can line up anywhere, he can come out of the backfield, he can be in the slot, he can be at a wide receiver, the X, the Y, the Z, he can do all the different routes and all the different places. It makes it very hard for defenses to scheme and cover him. When you're taking away some of their best players, just because they got to blanket him, or if they don't have one guy that can blanket him, if they're having to scheme to stop him, that frees up a lot of stuff like running room for Jordan Mason, like those routes for Ayuk, assuming he comes back healthy. What he gives you on the field is much more than the stats that it show you. It's kind of like, there's games where your star wide receiver might not have a huge game, but when you look back, it's because they put the best cornerback in the league on him and blanket him with double coverage the entire time. So, he didn't have a great game, but that's because he took out their best player and one of their safeties for the entire game and opened up the field elsewhere. So, yes, Debo is older. Yes, maybe he could put up better stats, but at the end of the day, he's that Swiss Army knife that does a lot for your franchise. And last year, they didn't have a lot to work with without Debo, and that's where my concern is with letting him go. Is Debo was able to stay on the field most of the season. Ayuk didn't. Parasol didn't. Juwan Johnson didn't. They didn't have a wide receiver who could stay healthy. And the one that they've signed to replace him, DeMarcus Robinson, he may be suspended. He may not be on the field. So they may end up in a situation where they got nobody, and they're going to wish that they had a guy like Debo who's at least going to be out there playing ball.
I can understand that. Is Debo still good enough to deal with his high salary as well as the mindset that he brings to a team? I mean, we don't feel that way. It sounds like you do. That's fine. He had one of the worst percent success rates versus man coverage in the NFL last year. He was terrible at anything past 2 yards down the field. He was only successful on slants, flats, and screens. He's a gadget player, and that's not. We have Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. He can be our backfield gadget player. We want to start operating downfield more. We don't need to cater our entire offense to Debo.
So it sounds like you're banking on CMC staying on the field. You're banking on your guys staying healthy, and that's why you don't need him. That's kind of what you're saying.
And if not, Jordan Mason, he toted the rock hard for us last year.
Unless somebody comes around and takes him for that second round pick, like you talked about.
I mean, then we get the second round pick. I think we're building for that future. We're trying to build a team around Brock. We're not building a team around Debo.
Yeah, but then you run into that's where the issue lies, right? Because if you're trying to build a future team around Brock, well, Brock's on his rookie deal now.
Exactly.
So you got to win now. You're in win now time. Most people don't win after QB gets paid.
I understand that, but I don't think we're going to try to play QB carousel. We're going to have to pay Brock eventually, and we need to figure out how the rest of the roster shakes out.
All right, fair enough. Let's move on. Move on to the next one here. I've got quite a few of these, but I'll try to just do the interesting ones. We're gonna go to probably the one we had the most to talk about would be the Seattle Seahawks. So last time you were the incumbent GM. Do you want to be the GM again, or would you like to be the outsider?
I will let you choose.
All right. Well, and just for clarity, the whole point of this is like to argue back and forth for those listening. Like, I don't necessarily believe everything I say, and I have to assume Vinny doesn't either. The whole point is just to make this game work and see who had better points. So as far as who I will be, I will. I know you don't want this position, so I will take the Seahawks GM position because I know you don't want it.
Okay. Okay, great. All right.
Okay. You don't, right? I mean, am I right on that?
No, yeah,
Okay.
I will gladly take the opposite. So
Okay,
I
so-
cannot wait to hear your defense.
So for those who don't know what the Seahawks has done, they traded away their quarterback, Geno Smith. He had a year left on his deal, would have been a $31 million cap hit. They traded him off to the Raiders. They also traded away DK Metcalf, who wanted out. They released Tyler Lockett, their other wide receiver, and then they signed Sam Darnold to a 3-year, $100 million contract, which comes up to $33 million a year average, slightly more than Geno. Now, keep in mind the way Oh, sorry, I'm not going to say keep in mind, so I'm going to swing part of my argument. Okay, so the Seahawks, my organization, we're rebuilding. We had some great runs there, but to be honest with you, ever since the Legion of Boom and the worst play call in history, and the Russell Wilson letting him cook, it just didn't work. We had to restart. We had to reset everything, and we brought in Geno. And honestly, we thought we were going to be rebuilding with Geno, and he actually outplayed. He outplayed his contract. He played great for us. We were very happy with the Geno Smith acquisition, and we made some waves. But we saw out there on the field last year that with Geno chucking the rock 50 times a game to 10 different wide receivers, all in these big deals, it just wasn't getting the job done. We do need quality play at quarterback, but we need more than that. So we decided to go ahead and trade Geno and trade away DK and release Lockett. As good as Lockett is, he's old and he's a little injured, and it was just a lot of money there to free up a lot of cap space. And we used that cap space to make improvements elsewhere on the team. And obviously the biggest one that people are going to talk about is we signed Sam Darnold. Now, I know you hear three-year, $100 million, so the average on that is $33.5 million. Well, Geno's getting 31, so we're paying more. That's not how it works. Contracts are usually either front or back loaded. So we've actually set this contract up in a way that's going to help us now, and we'll deal with the repercussions later. He's going to get a big signing bonus, but that doesn't count towards our cap. The cap hits come in the later years of the contract. So this year we have a lot of money to work with to go out and try to make other acquisitions through free agency and whatnot to try to make our team better. So even though it's a rebuild, we're going to be able to use that money to pay players later on, whereas right now we're just trying to collect the pieces, and we've got a quarterback locked up for the next couple of years.
Okay, yeah, that's super fair. I mean, I think Darnold he was a hot commodity. He was the number one free agent on a lot of people's big boards this year. So why'd you give him 3 years? If you're rebuilding, why did you give the man 3 years at $33 million a year? Do you think you're going to be done with your rebuild in 3 years?
So the reason we only gave him the 3-year deal is pretty cut and dry. We don't want to overpay and get locked into a bad deal like we did with Russ. We don't want to end up in a situation where we are kind of stuck with someone that doesn't outplay their contract. But at the same time, we also don't want to be underpaying guys and then no one's going to want to come here. So we felt that our deal with Darnold worked out well for both parties, where Sam's going to come in, we're showing him love. No one else showed him this love. No other teams were offering him, $33 million a year to come play. We're like, hey, we believe in you. We're going to show you this love. And if he comes and he balls out for us, he's going to want to stay with us because we're the ones who showed him that love. And if he comes and things don't go the way we want, even if he plays great and the rebuild doesn't go as well we want, then we've got a little leverage in the future to be like, hey, the rebuild didn't go according to plan. Now we can cut bait after only 3 years instead of being locked into a 5-year, $200 million contract. Because a lot of times with these longer deals, you tie up more money, it ties up more cap space, and then you end up with a lot of dead cap when you have to make changes in the middle of that. So do I believe in what we're doing? Of course I do, but I'm also a businessman. I also want to make sure things are good for the long haul. So the 3-year, $100 million deal was a quality deal for both him and us, which a lot of times is hard to come to. If you look at a lot of the other free agency signings for quarterbacks, most of them are 2-year deals, right? or they're people we extended on long 5-year deals. We found a nice middle ground in the middle where all these other guys who are signing 5-year deals, they're giving their quarterbacks $200 million over 5 years. It's $40 million a year. We were able to get Darnold at only $100 million over 3, so about $33 million. So we got a discount on Darnold without giving the extra year. So like, could we have gotten him for longer and paid more? Yes, but this got us a little bit of a discount. Like I said, we're trying to free up as much cap space as possible to try to make something happen.
But then on that front, why wouldn't you just ride Geno Smith into the sunset? Let's say he has 1 or 2 good years. Take him at your $31 million that you had him on, and let him run his career out in Seattle while you rebuild and build for the future, whether you develop Sam Howell, you draft a quarterback. I think for my rebuttal, I want to play a game that Mitch likes to play. Would you rather? In honor of our fallen soldier, who for some reason is not here today. Okay, would you rather have the Seahawks offensive line, garbage, or the Vikings offensive line?
As the general manager of the Seattle Seahawks, I'm a big Seahawks fan, so obviously I'm going to take all Seahawks players.
Okay, I understand that, but do you think your offensive line is better than the Vikings?
I think our offensive line needs some improvement, absolutely. But that's one of the benefits of the way we handled this. Like I said, you referenced Geno's $31 million cap hit. The cap hit. Let's just Google it. Let's just find out if I'm talking out my butt here or not. So hold on. I don't know if Sam Darnold's was available when I looked, because like you can see the cap hits by year.
So while you're Googling that, I'll make my case. I think the Vikings line is better. It'd be much maligned if you disagree with this. So Justin Jefferson is much better than JSN. Jordan Addison is much better than Jake Bobo. Kevin O'Connell is much better than Clint Kubiak when it comes to quarterback development and play calling. Why do you think the Vikings did not re-sign a quarterback that led them to a 14-3 regular season record? They went out, they beefed up their offensive line, the Minnesota Vikings did. Do you think there's something to that? You think Sam Darnold's going to come in? So, for the record, Sam Darnold was less successful than Geno Smith last year in downfield passes, intermediate range passes, and against zone coverage. The only thing that he was better at was short range passes and slightly better in man coverage with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and a much better offensive line than Geno had. So, I'm saying, were you not concerned at all that the Vikings were like, this dude just led us to 14-3, and we don't want to pay the guy $33 million? And you did, with nobody for him to throw the ball to.
So a couple of things. So the big difference there is age, right? Geno's 34, Sam's 27. Big age difference in those players. Sam, we can build a future with. Geno, we could not. As far as why not letting him run out his career, well, if we let Geno ride out this last year of his contract would have been up. He would have been a 35-year-old player that we would have been looking for a multi-year deal, and we don't know that we want to commit a multi-year deal to a 35-year-old player who is potentially going to want just as much, if not more, than we had paid him last time. Whereas with Sam Darnold, we can pay him good market value, which is below market for what people thought he was going to get, and lock him up for 3 years. At the end of that 3-year deal, he'll be 30, and I'm much more willing to spend more on a 30-year-old quarterback than I am even spending less on a 35-year-old quarterback. So Sam Darnold's cap hit, I can't see yet because the details of the contract aren't all there, but I'm going to show you what Geno's look like to give you some information. So Geno's contract with the Seahawks before he was traded was a 3-year, $75 million deal, right? So that's an average of 25, but the way they set it up, the cap hit the first year was only $10 million. The second year was 26, third year was 31. That's most likely how we've set it up with Darnold. I can't say for sure because I'm not actually the NFL GM. But hypothetically, I'm going to assume we set this cap up the same way. So we now, instead of having a 35-year-old QB hitting our cap for $31 million, I've got a 27-year-old QB hitting my cap for $15 million this year. It frees up a lot of space now to go and make the moves we want to make. And it also gives us opportunity in the future because now we've got a guy rocking with us who is younger player. Perfect example is Matthew Stafford is now restructuring his contract to make a friendlier deal with the Rams because they want to make a push and try to win a championship in our division. So we're going to try to stop them, obviously. But he restructured because he's been working with the Rams. He's happy with the Rams organization. Even when they told him he could go and explore the market, he still decided to come back to them and restructure with them. We believe that Sam Darnold might be the same way, that by the end of year 3, if we've got the pieces in place that we want, if we built this system the way we want, even if he's going to be a free agent, we'll be able to work with him and get him to sign a new contract with us to keep him with the team even though we might have to pay him more money, I think he might give us a little more of a discount than, say, if he went on the actual free agent market and took whatever free agent money was. We believe in Sam, but we also believe in our organization long term, and we're doing what's best for our organization long term.
Well, I can respect that. Good luck duking it out with the 49ers for last place in the division. You guys are going to have a wild ride watching the Rams and the Cardinals beat you multiple times within a season.
I mean, I don't know what Cardinals games you're watching, but I'll give you the Rams. Anyway, let's move on. You kind of touched on it briefly, the Vikings, a couple of big things there. So, do you want to be the Vikings GM then, and I'll be the outsider?
Yeah, I can take the GM of the Vikings.
All right, so your two big moves then are going to be letting Darnold go and re-signing Aaron Jones, or rather extending Aaron Jones, not re-signing him, but...
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Aaron Jones. Man,
and if you can see my screen, there's a lot more stuff they did, but those are from a fantasy football perspective, we mostly care about offense. But here's the rest of their recent moves, if that helps.
Yeah, we for the record, we are staunch fantasy football fans as well. We saw what Aaron Jones did for the Sharks last year, and wanted to commend. No, I'm just kidding. But
Sharks would have made the playoffs if we didn't bench him. Yep, straight up.
We gave Aaron Jones a 1-year, $8 million prove-it deal. He's an aging back who never really handled a full load. And man, let me tell you, he earned his money. And so we're gonna extend him for 2 years, $20 million. He's exactly what our team needs. He's a threat out of the backfield. He can still run between the tackles. He's explosive. He's a great pass blocker. He's exactly what we need. And if you've kind of noticed anything by these moves, we have bolstered our defense heavily with the addition of Jonathan Allen, Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Theo Jackson at safety, including beefing up our offensive line with Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly. We're planning for the future. Here's the deal. Everybody gave us a hard time when we didn't extend Kirk Cousins. Kirk wanted a lot of money. What happened? He went to Atlanta. They gave him $40+ million a year, and he didn't even make it past week 12. We knew. The system is not the quarterback. It's not Sam Darnold. We drafted a rookie quarterback last year. We believe in him. We brought Sam Darnold in. We went 14-3 with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, guys, 14-3. Do you think Sam Darnold's the answer? No, the answer is the talent that we have on the field. It's Kevin O'Connell's play calling. It's being able to protect the quarterback with our offensive line. As you saw when we didn't protect him, Sam, at the end of the season last year, we didn't do too hot offensively. That's why we're beefing up our offensive line this year. And we believe in McCarthy, and we believe in Kevin O'Connell, excuse me. And O'Connell is going to develop McCarthy to be just as good as Darnold. If he's not just as good, so what? We're not 14-3. We go 12-5. We still make the playoffs. Cry about it later. We have the team to dominate the NFC North in the future. I don't know if you noticed this, but the Lions aren't going to be able to re-sign everybody. They just lost their offensive coordinator. We'll see how they do over there as they have to start making the moves that we made.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You had a quarterback come in and win you 14 games, and you let him go. And it'd be one thing if he went out and he got $50 million a year on the open market, like a Dak Prescott deal that just, crushes the franchise. He's only getting $30-something million a year. And he probably would have given you guys a discount, to be honest, just because he knows he can win there. He knows he can fit in well there. Why risk it? You probably could have had him for 30 a year. And you're telling me that a guy that won you 14 games isn't worth $30 million a year? Not just won you 14 games. He threw 35 touchdowns. It wasn't like he's a game manager. Yeah, there's game managers who win. He was slinging the rock. I mean, I almost took a pie to the face because of it. I'm still going to take a pie to the face because Cousins sucked. But I almost took a pie to the face just because he was good. I mean, that's a guy that I don't know to let walk away. And in a league where the moniker now is don't pay running backs, you paid a running back. You gave him a 2-year, $20 million deal. So I mean, you went out and you're paying this running back now for effectively a rookie QB. I know he's a second-year player, but he hadn't played yet. If this rookie QB comes in and is not any good, or even if he is good, but he takes a while to develop like rookie QBs do, you're paying Aaron Jones $10 million a year for no reason.
No, it's not no reason. Our team is good enough to be successful without Darnold. I'm telling you. We've got the talent in place. Everything is there. The quarterback is a figurehead in our franchise. As long as we can have someone who can get the ball to Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, I would argue for you to name a better current wide receiver duo outside of maybe Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. You don't see anybody questioning them. We have one of the best wide receiver duos in the league. We're bolstering our offense. We're bolstering our defense. We freed up that $30 million to build the team. We do not need Sam Darnold to build a team. We did not want to invest $100 million in Sam Darnold. It shouldn't be that hard of a process to wrap our head around. The dude sat down on the bench in a game against New England and said, I'm seeing ghosts out there. Well, he can go see ghosts in Seattle. I'm done having him see ghosts in Minnesota. And let's be completely honest even further. I don't know if you saw what he did his last 3 games with us. Garbage. He had a chance to earn a contract. He didn't. We cannot win with Sam Darnold. We saw that this year. He's not a playoff caliber quarterback. We believe McCarthy is the future. We believe the way that we're building our team is going to have us competing for the NFC North every year with a chance at a Super Bowl.
I mean, my one counter argument to that is like calling someone not a playoff quarterback when it's his first time. You really can't judge someone on their first time. Peyton Manning was always thought as the guy who can't win the big game, and now he's going into the Hall of Fame having won 2 Super Bowls. So I just don't think you can be like, hey, it's his first time in the playoffs. Yeah. Did he struggle in the playoffs? Absolutely. But it's his first time in that environment. He'll do better the next time around. Everyone always does. I just think that you can't win this league without a quarterback. There are very, very few teams who play good defense, have a game manager, and win a championship. Like there's a couple of Ravens teams that did it, but it's rare. Usually the teams that win are teams that have quality quarterback play, and you had a quality quarterback and you let him walk out the door, and now you're rolling the dice. I get that you believe in McCarthy, you believe in your system, and that's great, but at the end of the day, you let a guy that was a commodity that you knew could win with your organization, with the talent and the players you had, and you let him go, and we're going to have to see how that pans out.
Okay, I will double down on a sentence that you just had, is it is not fair to evaluate Sam Darnold in a 1 game in a playoffs. Lest you forget, we had a chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFC, and he threw for 166 yards against the Lions, then went on the road in the wild card game and lost to the Rams 27-9, scored 9 points in both those games. But as you said, it's hard to judge a guy on his first playoff appearance ever. I will pie bet, it can be a rolling pie bet, that Sam Darnold never starts a game as the season-long starter. So let's say he's a backup down the future and there's an injury. Sam Darnold will not be a starting quarterback in the NFL in a playoff game. I will keep a rolling pie bet that does not happen.
Well, no, because that's betting whether or not he gets back to the playoffs. That's not the same as because then I'm betting on the Seahawks organization.
At any point in his career. Well, you just bet on the Seahawks organization,
right? But you're asking me. That's different. Like I'm talking about someone. I'm saying that he will do better the next time he gets a chance to play in the playoffs. I'm not saying I believe in Darnold. Again, remember the way these arguments work. We don't argue necessarily what we believe. We argue what we were assigned. So I'm not betting I'm not doing a pie bet based on something that was assigned to me. All right, let's move on. We'll since we're doing a lot of NFC. Another big NFC team, Los Angeles Rams. Would you like to be the GM, or would you like to be the? Or actually, hold on. Which one were you just? You were the GM there. Do you want to be the GM or the outsider?
I'll let you choose. I think we kind of flip flopped on who gets to choose what, right. So I'll let you choose.
I'll be GM this time then, and you be the outsider.
Okay.
So yeah, let me tell you about a few moves that we made. Matthew Stafford, fantastic quarterback for our organization. We've won a Super Bowl with him. He's been great. He's got a couple of years left on his deal, but he and we both want to win now. We're in win now mode because he is an older guy. He's great, but he's older. He's got a couple of great years left in him. We want to get the most out of him. So we were able to restructure his contract, get a more team-friendly deal. We let him go and test the market. He saw what was out there. He absolutely had a bigger offer from the Giants, but we were able to, work it out with him and sweet talk him and to stay in with us, and we think it's going to be a great fit. As part of that, we decided to go out and get him a great weapon. We signed Davante Adams. Davante Adams is still a high-quality wide receiver. He has had some issues with the teams he's been on, but primarily with wanting to win. His issue isn't that he's not a hard worker or not a good player. His issue is that he really wants to win. He's super competitive, and he had to play for the Raiders and the Jets. Poor guy. Okay? We're bringing him into an organization that knows about winning, that knows how to win and wants to win now. He's going to be a massive asset to this organization. And in order to make room for a guy like him, we did have to make some cuts. And unfortunately, one of those cuts was we had to cut our boy Cooper Kupp. We love Kupp. He was great for us. He had that one season that was one of the greatest single seasons the wide receivers ever had. But what people don't realize is he's only got 2 1,000-yard receiving years ever. He doesn't stay on the field. That is what it is. He's a guy that we were going to have to pay $27 million this year. He's had 2 years left on his deal. Davante Adams has 2 years left on his deal. We're going to be paying him $22 million a year. So it's cheaper to get Davante Adams. Davante Adams is healthier, stays on the field more, and he can fill, quite frankly, the same role. The possession wide receiver role, Davante can do that the same way that Kupp could. Davante can fly down the field the same way that Kupp could. He fills that same role without having the liability of not being on the field. And then the last one was we did re-sign Atwell. Someone mentioned earlier we gave him a 1 year, $10 million deal. Like I said, we're in win now mode. Some people might think, hey, that's a lot of money. But if you look at the games where Atwell was asked to be a big play guy, he was. In the games where we needed him because Kupp was out hurt or because Puka was out hurt or whatever, the games where we needed him, Tutu stepped up for us, and we wanted to reward that and give him some payday for this year. And that's one of the reasons why Stafford restructured that deal, so we could go out and sign some of his wide receivers that he has a good rapport with, so that we can move forward strong from here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think anybody is going to argue with what you've got going on over there in Los Angeles. Like, as soon as you guys get counted out, something always happens. I mean, you guys somehow won the NFC West last year when you guys were completely written off. So I think you guys know how to build winners. I just think sometimes you got to know when to call it quits, too. Matt Stafford came back. He agreed to a restructured contract. Wasn't the rumor just last year that he didn't have an arm anymore, that he was injured? Something, I think, with his neck or back where he'd never be the same. Yeah, he was okay last year, but he's not great. Life after Matt Stafford needs to begin sometime. So it would be nice if you guys try to figure out what that looks like. I think going all in on Stafford is, you guys gave him the opportunity to seek a trade elsewhere for a reason. You didn't really feel like he was what you needed to win this year. So, I'm not sure how you feel about him having him back. And then Davante Adams. I mean, the guy's been on, this is now his 4th team in the last 5 or 6 years. Don't you think it's weird that this alpha wide receiver, Davante Adams, for whatever reason, can't seem to find a home and keep a home? He's old. You get old Davante Adams now. Now, is he still going to be some version of Davante Adams? Fine, yeah, he'll be a good wide receiver too. I don't think he's a all-in. You guys are still competing for the Super Bowl. If only thing, your saving grace is that you may be there's something about the South's going, just kidding. You may be the second worst division behind the AFC South moving forward. So there's a possibility that you make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be because of your play. I don't think you're Super Bowl contenders. Speaking of cap hits, goodness gracious, $50 million cap hit, $54 million cap hit. They did restructure this deal, so I'm not sure if this includes the restructuring.
Yeah, this does.
Of the contract.
That's going to be part of my argument, but yeah. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So, okay, a couple things. First, let's talk about my boy Matt Stafford. You mentioned that there were some rumors that he might have had a dead arm last year. A couple of things about that. Number one, Stafford, go look at his last couple years. He doesn't play to his full potential early because he does have to get ramped up. He's an older guy, but that means he's peaked when it comes to playoff time, and that's what matters. Go and look in the NBA, guys like LeBron James. There's guys who are older players who sit out games all the time for rest. All right? Now, he can't sit out for rest, but he can conserve some fuel in the tank for when it really matters, and that's what this man does. He was going to be massive hits to our cap this year. That's why we did let him go and seek out a trade because, look, we care about Stafford, but yeah, we didn't know that we were willing to drop $50 million on him in cap this year. That was going to be really tough for us to eat in cap, and so we said, hey, if you want to go look, you can. We don't want you to go, but we're going to let you go do that. He went and did that. He came back, and you know what? He decided, hey, I still want to be here and win. You guys are trying to win. If we can make these other moves to help give me the guys around me to win, let's do it. And that's what we did. So the reason we let him go search for other options was we basically told him, hey, we love you, but we can't afford to take this big of a cap hit. If you're willing to restructure, we want you here. We want you as our guy. But if you aren't willing to restructure, we're going to give you that permission to go look because we respect you as a player and as an asset. We want to give you that opportunity. And I think showing him that respect is what brought him back to the table, and that worked out well for us. You also, the dead arm that we talked about, whether or not his arm was injured. Again, not to keep harking on this guy, but there's a gentleman by the name of Peyton Manning. I don't know if you heard. He had an issue where he had to sit out for an entire season. When he came back, his arm was a noodle. He could not throw the football downfield at all. He just couldn't throw. People thought he was done. Won a Super Bowl the next season. So Hey, maybe that's what's happening here. Everyone thought Stafford was done, going to win the Super Bowl the next season. That'd be 2025. Let's go Rams.
I do think it's very interesting as the GM that you can't tell me about his new restructured contract, but I guess we'll talk about that at a later date.
Well, you know what? This website doesn't update right away. All right, I couldn't tell you about the Darnold one either.
Your Excel hasn't updated yet. No, I'm just kidding. Listen. Hey, the Rams are gonna ram. They're gonna figure it out. Sean McVay is one of the best. But yeah, I mean, it's going all in on some of these old players usually isn't working out very well. I mean, what happened to the last team that went all in on an old quarterback and an old wide receiver, aka Devontae Adams? Oh, the Jets. They were worse with both of them, and even worse when they had the combo. So good luck.
The difference is that Devontae Adams is still a good player. The quarterback just wasn't. Matt Stafford's still a good quarterback. That's the difference, right? So Aaron Rodgers has been washed for a few years now, and people just don't want to admit it. Aaron Rodgers is not the same guy. There's a reason Green Bay moved on. I'm one of the biggest Favre homers there is. There's a reason that Green Bay moved on for Favre. Now, at the time, I didn't like it. At the time, I rallied against it. I was very pro Favre to the Jets, Favre to the Vikings, right? But at the end of the day, Green Bay moved on for a reason. They were right to move on when they moved to Aaron Rodgers from Favre. Green Bay moved on for a reason. They were right to move on when they moved from Rodgers to Jordan Love, right? It was time to move on. Rodgers is washed, but Adams still played good. Adams still played good with the Raiders when he had a quarterback. Adams was great when he had Derek Carr, but once Derek Carr left, the Raiders had no quarterback play. He wasn't happy because he wanted to win, and he incorrectly thought that Rodgers wasn't washed. And who knows, maybe he thought Rodgers was going to get it back because there were a couple of games last year where Rodgers did play well, but it just wasn't nearly enough. And so now he's like, you know what? I want to win. So that's why he came here, because we're a winning organization. And yeah, is Stafford an older player? Of course he is, but he's an older player who won last year. He won games last year. He was out there balling, and towards the end of the season, he was balling hard. So that's why I think it's going to work out for us.
I will say, last note, the irony is quite hilarious that if for whatever reason something happens to Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams needs to go back to the quarterback who, on the wide receiver on Netflix, said, I'm going to die out there, a.k.a. Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah, so that will be a fun developing
I did not
story.
include that as my argument that we've also signed Jimmy G as a backup. It's also worth noting, as far as age goes, that their ages are similar, Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. And like I said, Kupp would have been a bigger cap hit. So, yeah. I was surprised to learn that stat, though, that Kupp did not have that many 1,000-yard seasons just because he's always hurt. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
All right. We got time for a couple more here. Just because we're Raider fans, let's do the Raiders. Not a lot to talk about. We'll do the Raiders since we're Raider fans. Do you want to be GM or the?
I don't know. I feel like I've been GM justifying their moves for the last 20 years. Yeah, I can be GM. I'll go ahead and take it.
All right. So the big moves obviously is traded for Geno Smith. Big signing to Max Crosby. Those are the two big things. Is paid Max Crosby FU money, which at the time was the highest paid non-quarterback. That's since been broken, but at the time it was the highest paid non-quarterback, and traded for Geno. So go ahead, let me hear it.
Yeah. So listen, the Raiders, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. We tried, guys. We tried. We understand it wasn't a quarterback for the future. We hoped that somebody would take a leap forward and really be the one that dominated the quarterback room, and it just didn't happen. And you know what? The Seahawks reached out to us. They came calling. They actually wanted Max Crosby. They offered us DK and Geno, and we're like, oh, Geno's on the block. We got Pete Carroll. They're kind of besties, So we wanted to run it back with Pete Carroll in his successful days. So we brought Geno Smith into the room. Only cost us a third-round draft pick, which incredibly cheap. If you actually look at what we've gotten from some of our recent deals, we got a better pick for Devontae Adams. We saw how that went. The Seahawks gave up a third-round draft pick for Sam Howell last year. So listen, we feel like we underpaid for a quarterback who's shown he can win in this league. We re-signed Max Crosby. There was a whole bunch of grumblings that he was going to go somewhere else. Nah, he's a Raider through and through. He's got that black and silver in his blood, and now he's going to stay with us. We're hoping to keep him forever. Malcolm Kuntz was injured last year. The 2 years ago, he was our sack leader. We get him back. We've replaced some of these guys that left, so like Robert Spillane and Murrig with Jeremy Chin and Landon Roberts, who are cheaper options. We still have a ton of room in our cap. Who knows? Maybe we make a run at Cooper Kupp. Who knows what we do in the draft? Maybe Cam Ward falls. Maybe we take Sanders. Maybe we take the number one running back or the number one wide receiver in this year's draft. We're sitting pretty. Our future is bright. We'll take Geno to kind of get us there. We have great pieces. We just have not had a quarterback. Our defense is overplayed. Our offense has underperformed. We're not that far off if we can get a couple good years out of Geno and then kind of figure out what that transition looks like in the future.
So a couple of things. You just mentioned a couple good years out of Geno. Well, there's the problem. Geno Smith is on the last year of his contract. You've traded for Geno Smith, and at the end of this year, he's a free agent again. So you've given up a draft pick for a 34-year-old quarterback who's not going to be under contract after the season. That's something that teams do when they're in win-now mode. Teams in win-now mode will trade draft picks for a veteran player with 1 year left who they think is solid. I'm not knocking Geno as a player. Geno may be good. He'll absolutely be better than anything the Raiders have run out of quarterback in the last couple of years. But the problem is he's only going to be there for a year unless you end up having to sign him to big money. Most people, when they do these trades, they're called sign-in trades for a reason. Why not have Geno Smith sign an extension first before trading for him? Because now you're going to be in a situation where, regardless of what happens this year, and quite frankly, this year's got to be a rebuild because there's only up to go from where you were last year. So this year you're not competing for the chip. Let's say you do get those pieces in place and you're ready to make a run in 2-3 years. Well, Geno's not under contract for 2-3 years. And then Max Crosby, the Raiders just overpay everybody. I'm not saying Max isn't great. He's great. And yeah, he's absolutely a Raider. And I get that you wanted to keep him, but you made him the highest paid non-quarterback ever. Ever. You just gave him so much money, and there's no reason to do that. You don't need to set the market on guys. If he's a guy who wants to be there, which by all accounts he did, you didn't have to pay him so much. And the biggest issue isn't even about a player you have or haven't signed. It's your cap space. You've got more cap space than almost anybody in the league, and you're doing nothing with it. Normally I'd say, hey, conserve money if this was our business I was running, but it's the NFL and there's a cap for a reason. You want to be pretty much at it to compete. Why aren't you spending money?
Listen, I understand that. That's enough. We have a plan. Don't worry about what we're doing with our money. We have a plan for the future. We know we have to extend Geno. We've got to figure out what's going on with our offensive line, so we're not done there yet. Like I said, Cooper Kupp just got released. We still have Stephon Diggs out on the market. Can we reunite with Amari Cooper? Who knows? Maybe we have enough money to bring them all in. I'm not saying that it's possible, but it could happen. There's some decent running backs still out there on the market. So, listen, we're not done yet. And as far as Geno's concerned, he's the best quarterback that we've had since pre-leg fracture Derek Carr, which was 10 years ago. So, listen, Geno's the best quarterback we've had in a while. We don't feel like we're that far off. Our division is very competitive, but don't believe the hype you hear out of the Chargers and the Broncos. And I don't know if you watched the Chiefs in the Super Bowl or the Chiefs at all last year. It's anybody's division. We can be right there with a couple smart plays. And if you're telling me that Max Crosby doesn't deserve to be one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks, then you're crazy. That dude has been a top 2 or 3 defensive player for the last 3 years since we drafted him. Listen, he earned his money. We're going to build around him. It was a different regime that let Khalil Mack go, but we're not going to be that regime. We're keeping our studs.
The biggest thing for me is in a league where youth matters, teams are winning when they have quarterbacks on rookie contracts. Teams are winning when they bring in these young coaches that have innovative ideas and change the way the game is played, change specifically offense, these offensive-minded gurus like, Kevin O'Connell with the Vikings that come in and make a big difference, like the coach of the Rams, whose name is escaping me. I can see his face. Sean McVay with the Rams. McVay. These young innovators come in and make a game changer. You've gone out and you've signed the oldest coach in the league in Pete Carroll and a very old quarterback in Geno Smith. Where everyone else is trying to get younger at those 2 positions, you got older. Yeah,
listen, hey, you know what? Don't knock. We went out and got Chip Kelly too after winning a national championship as offensive coordinator. Listen, we're revamping things. We're trying something different this year. and we believe it's going to lead to some success. I don't know if you know this, but we went for the cool, hip, young coach last year. Didn't work out very well, did it? Nah.
All right, so game aside, I'm asking you now, Vinny. What are your honest thoughts on the Raiders offseason? Pro, con, in the middle? What do you think?
I mean, we went from Ben Johnson to Pete Carroll. I think that's a loss. But then again, hey, we've talked about this on other articles or other episodes of the pod that sometimes those guys pan out and sometimes they don't. We hear the guys that hit. We hear about the Kyle Shanahans. We hear about the Sean McVays, but we don't hear about like the Jonathan Gannons, the Shane Steichens, all these other like young guys that come in that just don't do anything. So listen, I don't necessarily hate the Pete Carroll signing. We brought some experience in. To me, it just kind of feels like kind of the same old, same old. We've been down this a lot. We hire an experienced older coach who's been fired from a previous job. We, have a quarterback situation that's really unknown. I don't see us being better than a 500 team again. It just is what it is. But I don't know. I'm having a hard time understanding where all our money is. We had the second most cap space going into free agency, and we haven't spent any of it. So I'm confused,
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know where the Raiders are spending their money. They didn't re-sign guys that I thought they should. Like I thought Merrick really deserved it. I thought Nate Hobbs really deserved it. So, yeah.
Well, look who decided to show up. But before I introduce him, let's keep going. Yeah, so I mean, as a Raider for myself, yeah, my biggest fear is like the reason we aren't spending our money is because we're trying to save that cap space to sign Geno to a big contract. I'm so afraid that's what it's going to be. Like I'm so worried that the Raiders are about to announce a 4-year, $125 million contract for Geno Smith, and that's where our cap space is going.
Yeah,
like I'm terrified because that's such a Raider thing to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's such a Raider thing to go and do. Go and bring in an aging guy and give him a too long deal. Same with Pete Carroll. Like, yeah, in a vacuum, like Pete Carroll's fine. Like, I don't dislike the Pete Carroll hire, but at the same time, dude's old and he hadn't been in the game for a bit. Like, I'm worried about it.
I can't see the Raiders extending Geno past 3 years. I do think they give him more money because I think that's one of the things he wants. I won't be terribly concerned as long as it's not a whole lot more than he's making now. If he pushes like 40 plus, I'll be really concerned. But yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, my biggest issue is, like you said, just why aren't we spending money? Like the longer you wait in free agency, the less players there are to go get.
Yeah. I am very excited that we didn't pay Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, etc. So
yeah, if we had gone, I didn't think there was anything out there. I'd have been pretty upset.
And I'm kind of happy about Geno Smith because I'm wondering if this deters us from drafting Shedeur Sanders. I much prefer Cam Ward, so we can go out and get like the either a stud offensive lineman, or if a defensive player falls, or Gene T, or one of the top wide receivers in the class. I think the Geno Smith trade, if anything, opened up what we can do in the draft this year, and not ruin the 6th pick. But I could be wrong. We've ruined so many drafts that I have zero faith in our ability to draft anybody.
Welcome in, Mitch. How you doing?
Good. See you talking about the Raiders. It's concerning without announcing the contract for Geno Smith. And why wouldn't you guys just sign Bradford or not Bradford? Sorry, Darnold to.
I definitely don't want Sam Bradford.
Yeah, definitely don't want Sam Darnold. But I mean, why don't you guys? I mean, depending on what the Geno Smith contract is like, one, I don't understand. Seattle looks like they're in a fire sale. So did they get? They must have gotten Darnold for cheaper than Smith. That's probably what we're gonna learn here. That's what I'm getting at. Is like based off what Seattle's doing with all their movement and stuff. There's no way they went out and got a more expensive quarterback than Geno Smith. That's all I'm trying to say. So I think it's gonna be. I think it's got to be closer to like $40 million. All
right, so there's a couple of teams left now that Mitch here will do them. I mean, granted, these aren't we've unfortunately used all the good ones, but a couple of teams left. Good. Mitch, the way the game works is go ahead.
I just want to say one more thing about the Raiders really quick. I do think it's fascinating that Pete Carroll came in and chose Geno Smith over Russell Wilson. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think it's an interesting little tidbit. But moving on, the game is pretty fun.
He was trying to let Russ cook. Okay, Mitch, the way the game works is I'm going to give you an NFL team. I'm going to tell you about some of their major offseason moves thus far. You will either be the GM and you must defend every decision you've made, or you'll be an outsider and you must be opposed to every decision. So you can't pick and choose. You're either the GM and you support all moves they've made, or you're the outsider and you're against all moves they've made. So, for example, as a Raider fan, I just had to argue against signing Max Crosby, which obviously, as an actual Raider fan, I am very pro signing Max Crosby. So that's the way the game works. We've done a lot of the teams. We will go on to one of the funniest teams in football, the Jets, Jets. So let me, before we start, which side do you guys want to take? Who wants to be the GM? Who wants to be the outsider?
Speaking of the game, to all our listeners, I apologize. I just lost.
Oh, you son of a gun. I, too, have just lost the game. But, Mitch, you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to be GM? Who wants to be the outsider?
I'll let Mitch pick.
team?
I'll let Mitch if he wants
for the New York
to
Jets.
defend
Do you want to be the
Jets.
GM or the outsider?
I'll be the one who supports the Jets.
Okay, so you're the Jets general manager. You must defend all of your decisions. So major decisions that the Jets have made so far this year, there's two big ones. You let Davante Adams go, you cut Aaron Rodgers, and then you sign Justin Fields to a 2-year, $40 million contract. You can see on the screen here in front of you some of the other transactions they've made. You're welcome to comment on those. Whether or not you'd like to is up to you, because like I said, this is a fantasy football pod, so most of what we're talking about is, offense related, but you're welcome to cover anything. But go ahead, Mitch. You're the general manager. Please defend specifically the Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers cuts, as well as the Justin Fields signing.
Well, they got rid of that staple, that Band-Aid of an offense line I was talking about last summer, where I said this is the why I didn't like the running backs. I didn't like Hackett. And more importantly, it's kind of like addition by subtraction. Like the players you let go instantly make your team better and open up room for everyone else. Like Justin Fields at 20 million a year or even a little less might be the biggest steal at quarterback. I mean, he might be the cheapest, best quarterback. They got rid of all those three of those Band-Aid. I think Morgan Moses went to the Patriots. They brought in an actual tackle. Depending on what they do in the draft here, if they just get a couple more linemen, I actually think the Jets they weren't terrible team last year. I know they're not going to have Rodgers, and I guess I'm going to be a Steelers fan next year, but I'm not even playing along with the game. I actually do think the Jets, I mean, they haven't gotten huge free agent signings because that's hard to do when you're the Jets after the years you've had the last couple of years. But, I mean, even getting someone like Brandon Stevens on the defensive side is not bad. So, I mean, Jets actually, for the Jets, I mean, they did pretty good. Not even lying. Or not even exaggerating because of the game. Free up a lot of cap and a lot of old bad players that they used as a Band-Aid. Bring in some actual couple players on 3-year deals. This isn't like 1-year deal, 1-year deal. I mean, actually, a couple of these guys are on 1-year deals. But no, I mean, it's actually in the correct movement. I don't know about their coach, but other than that, I like.
I mean, listen, I'm going to give you some credit as a new general manager, and that's about all I'm going to give you credit for. You guys let Hassan Reddick experiment. That failed miserably. Did he ever even see the field for you? If he did a couple games, you just let your captain, defensive player, C.J. Mosley go about an hour ago. I don't understand that. And then you failed the Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams experience. And I'm not sure if addition by subtraction is great. So you signed 2 offensive linemen, but you've also lost quite a few too. So you're still just going to have that same leaky hole in your offensive line. Listen, Justin Fields, congratulations. You are now paid Justin Fields the most money that he's ever made in his career, coming off a year where he was a backup to Russell Wilson, where he lost the starting job after he was let go by the Chicago Bears. So let's just hope that you get a version of Justin Fields that we haven't seen yet. I don't think it works that way for you guys, though. You guys let Geno go and Darnold go.
He lost the starting job after being like 5-2, by the way.
So, I mean, listen, usually the way that the Jets quarterbacks go is they leave the Jets and get better. They don't come to the Jets and get better. Actually, we've seen them come to the Jets and get worse, a la Aaron Rodgers. So, hey, you know what? Good luck. Jets are going to jet. I don't think you guys are close to being competitive. If there's one person that I feel bad for, is you're wasting a generational talent in Garrett Wilson. At some point, he has to have someone who's halfway decent throw him the ball. And it's just, you guys went out and got a running back. So, congrats on your new quarterback. I'm not really sure what's going on in the Jets. The only thing I can commend you on is you got off of whatever your horrific experiment was for the last couple of years with Aaron Rodgers, Hassan Reddick, and Devontae Adams. That's rough.
Yeah, GM Mitch, I need to know. I need you to justify this Justin Fields signing for me, because it's one thing to sign Justin Fields, but you're paying him, $20 million a year,
Nothing.
but only 2-year deal. So like, what's the deal with that? Like, do you believe him or not?
No, that's more of them believing in my organization. I don't think anyone wants to sign more than 2 years with my organization. But
So you offered him more, but he wouldn't take it. I got you. Okay.
I'm assuming I've offered a lot more to a lot more players. And if even getting these players as the Jets after that year, like even getting some of these guys to come here for money is amazing. Honestly, the line thing was their biggest issue. I don't know if Rodgers was their biggest issue, but you basically got so much younger in so many positions, and you got rid of so much drama. Like it's like it has to be a win. Like if you can't, I mean, I love Rodgers, but if you can't deal with Rodgers, you cannot have him on your team. And I know the Jets are the Jets media, but I don't. I mean, you go younger, you get less noisy, and you can actually quietly lose next year instead of because like I think the Jets is more problem is more of perception. Like a lot of people thought the Jets were ready to win last year because of Rodgers the year before his injury. I just think this is more back to reality GM movement. I mean, be honest, guys. Be honest. Like not me, but the Jets getting Justin Fields this year after everything that's happened is kind of actually impressive. Not gonna
Well,
lie.
my biggest confusion, like, okay, outside the game, my biggest confusion is why the 2-year deal? Because it's kind of like the same argument you weren't here for when we talked about Sam
Yeah.
Darnold. If you believe in Justin Fields, you should give him more than a 2-year deal so he doesn't walk. Because like the absolute worst thing that can happen to you is this guy comes in, you're the first team who's given him money. He balls out. He actually does play well. He gets better. He and Garrett Wilson develop a rapport. Your defense is solid, and you win some football games. And now at the end of 2 years, he's a free agent, and he can go anywhere, and he can go play, stay in the same city, in the same apartment, same house, whatever, and play for the Giants, who will offer him $60 million a year because the Giants are desperate.
I think it's the same reason for like what's his name, Miles Garrett and a couple others. That third year for especially for a QB doesn't mean jack. They'll either if he does well over the next 2 years, they'll have him signed already, or if he does want to go to free agent for 3 years, you got so much. I mean, 2 years. And he does want to go free agent. You got 2 year value out of him. I think this is more of Justin Fields won't sign a 3 year deal.
See,
And a lot of
I think the
teams,
third year is the buffer, right? I think that's why they give people 3-year deals, is because like if they play well in the first 2 years, it gives you a year to work out a new deal with them. And
they won't
extend
play
them.
in that third year. That's I think what's been proven. I mean, I wish I was a little bit more prepared with names, but like that third year in a lot of these offensive players, they just don't acknowledge they don't what's it called value it. They don't like, hey, that's not a year. I'm definitely gonna either not play or be traded before that third year. So
Right.
I think this was just more nuance. This is just like Justin Fields is like, I'm not doing 3 years to you guys. And also it's good for Justin Fields. Like he's also got to win a little bit on this bet too. So, I mean, on this deal too, I guess. If you're coming to the Jets, you got to have some incentive. And it's like, oh, well, I could go play my butt off for the next 2 years and get a big contract somewhere else.
All right. One more. Let's do the
Sure.
Bungles. So before we go to the Bengals, who wants to be the GM? Who wants to be the outsider? Vinny, I guess I'll let you choose because
Oh Lord, I'm gonna have to be the outsider on this one.
kind of sounds like you should be the
Well,
GM.
I mean,
then.
unless do we think? I mean, do we? I don't know. Yeah, I'll be the outsider. I'll be the outsider.
All right. So Mitch, you're the GM. So here's a list of the Bengals moves. The important ones to note. A few things. One is you franchise tag T Higgins again. So you second straight year you couldn't work out a deal, so you're paying him ridiculous money on the franchise tag. Re-signed Mike Gesicki when your tight end play was what it was. But the bigger thing, and this will include a defensive player, is you had the NFL sack leader a couple years in a row on a team that has no defense, by the way, has the NFL sack leader 2 years in a row, and tells him he can go out and look for a trade instead of signing him. And while he's been out looking for a trade, we have seen not one but two break the bank deals where defensive ends get paid money that resets the market. And now you're in a position where you're going to have to do the same if you want to keep him. So go ahead, Mitch. You're the GM. Defend your decisions.
I mean, this one's kind of simple. Every single team is trying to draft three players in three positions. You're like look at the top paid players in the league. Quarterbacks, wide receiver. So you want to go out and you want an elite quarterback. You want to go out and you want an elite wide receiver, and you want to go out and you want an elite edge rusher. So like, if you have those things and your money's locked up in those things, that's fine. The Chiefs have won Super Bowls off of those three, off of Jones, Kelsey, Mahomes. So it's like, I don't think there's really any GM here. Yeah, there might be a little money locked, but a lot of teams can just get some positional players. You need, a positional left tackle or right tackle, depending on your QB, wide receiver, quarterback, and an edge rusher. If you have those four, three and a half, four positions, all the rest of the guys could just fall into place. You could be a bunch of whoever's. We don't care. So, honestly, I know a lot of people are hating on the Bengals, but I mean, any team in any NFL, yeah, their defense might be a little bit worse. You can just draft a little bit better. You can maybe get some 1 year deals. Look, that's exactly what they did. They went out and got a bunch of 1 year guys. I mean, the Eagles went out and got a couple 1 year guys last season, and it worked out for them. So I'm just saying, as long as you have the four or three and a half, four positional players in the NFL, the rest can just fall in line, and who cares? So as long as I got my Burrow, Chase, or as Samantha calls it, Jamar Chase Burrow from because they're running back or whatever too. So I mean, Jamar Chase Brown. Sorry, Jamar Chase Brown. As long as they've got those couple guys in Burrow and I mean, I know they're losing the edge rusher and they're trying to resign him, but that's a good problem. You want to be able to sign an edge rusher to a 30-40 million dollar deal. You want that. So this is not problems. This is just, can the GM pick and fill the rest of the parts? Because let's be real here. Let's say the Bengals made the playoffs. They didn't lose that one game into the Patriots in week 4 or 5 or whatever, and they made the playoffs. A lot of people are picking the Bengals in these games with their current roster, but they didn't make the playoffs last year, so we didn't get to hear a lot of people pick the Bengals or be high on them. So it's like, I don't know if they're really that far away. You've got the four best positions. Move on.
Yeah, but here's the problem: is you might not have these guys next year. You might not have Trey Hendrickson. T. Higgins is pissed off. You've already promised that Jamar Chase would be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, which is now an absorbent amount of money. Because rather than do this deal a year ago or 2 years ago, you chose to wait. Since then, Justin Jefferson's making almost 36 million a year. DK Metcalf is making 30 million a year. Miles Garrett and Max Crosby just signed for 40 mil plus a year. So now you have to invest 40 quarterback money to Jamar Chase. You didn't extend T. Higgins a couple years ago when you had the chance. You're now paying him $26 million a year. You think if you made this deal a couple of years ago that you couldn't have gotten Higgins on a 3 year, $75 million contract to save yourself money? And in one of the deepest tight end classes in recent memory, you chose to give Mike Gesicki $8.5 million a year rather than just spend a second or third round draft pick on one of the top tight ends in this draft. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know how you're spending your money. You should have extended these guys when you had the chance. Everybody knew that the salary cap was growing. You had plenty of opportunity to finagle these deals beforehand, and you didn't. I'm sorry. You pulled the Cowboys on this one, and look what the Cowboys are doing. The Bengals might just go down as the next iteration of the Cowboys, where they can't pay everybody because they they refuse to extend anybody. And I'm sorry, the Bengals, you're just going to be a meddling team again.
Maybe, but a couple of things I'd like to respond to that is, you're already paying Jamar Chase $32 million. So even if you sign him to the number one contract in the league, which would be better than the Cowboys wide receiver, that's only up to 41. So it's like the difference of 10 million. That's not a whole lot of difference to keep the number one wide receiver in football. You already have an elite player in Burrow. Like a lot of these guys, a lot of these elite franchises are trying to go find Burrow. Like, you already have the piece that you need. Like, the Rams had to go out and get Stafford to win a Super Bowl. You already have that Stafford Burrow piece. That's what you first and foremost need to win a Super Bowl. So how many teams in this league have a realistic chance of actually winning a Super Bowl? Comes down to like your quarterback play. Well, as long as you got Chase in him, you could put up a terrible defense. Also, to the other thing is Higgins. you don't need Higgins at the value of 30 million. I'm sure you can go out and get a Sovius or whatever his name was and a couple other wide receivers to fill in number two across Chase and be perfectly fine. And as far as Gesicki, the reason Gesicki got that deal is I was a little surprised too. But if you look up his blocking numbers, his run blocking numbers, they're like only second to Kittles and Kelsey and Komet. So I guess I'd be fourth, fourth to those guys. But he's in the top five and a lot of other tight end stats. And when you've got this offense, a good blocking tight end, it's worth it. Could Gesicki get old real fast and fall off? That's the nervous part for sure. But I, as a GM of the Bengals, must know that already. You know what I mean? Like maybe I've been next to him, worked out with him. Maybe I know a little bit more than other people, type of thing. So I'm hoping that deal, you know what I mean, is just for other football things that aren't like obvious to us, like run blocking, pass blocking, being able to know the offense, that kind of stuff.
Leadership.
T. Higgins, yeah, leadership. T. Higgins, that's interesting. He is one of the best number two wide receivers in the league, but no offense to Higgins or anything as the GM of the team. Sometimes your best attribute is your availability. And T. Higgins is not available very often. Why would you not go get there's so many wide receivers in this league.
Hey, you're the GM. You have to defend the position. You can't.
Sorry. For $30 million franchising Higgins, I may have been able to go get someone for 15. So this might have been my mistake.
I will argue that
I'm happy. Yeah,
he's defending why he hasn't extended him. So you know what? I can get on board with that. He's defending the franchise tag.
Because he's at 26-30 on a franchise tag. If I extend him, it's going to be closer to 35. And if I don't, it's around there. I just don't have him locked up.
Yeah,
So
my biggest issue
Higgins.
isn't your offensive moves. My biggest issue is just letting Hendrickson look elsewhere. Like
Sure.
this instead of locking him up. Like this is an elite pass rusher on a team that has nobody that's any good on defense other than him. And you're basically putting yourself in a position where now he's going to walk because you're not going to be able to pay him. So instead of paying him when you had the chance, now he's going to walk.
I mean, the Eagles, I hate to keep comparing it to them, but they did a really good job drafting some of their defensive players in the third, fourth, and fifth round. So I'm hoping as a GM of this team, I can go out and actually in this in this draft.
Right, but you need, of the 11 starters on defense, you need 10 of them. So, he was the one you already had. But
sure. So I just need like 3 or 4, to be honest with you. With as long as I got Burrow and Chase, I only really needed like 3 or 4 defensive players.
And I do think what's funny though is you are asking for a ton of value. I think they want like a first plus for both Higgins and Hendrickson.
Sure.
And not only that, you refuse to re-sign them. So what is the bargaining? You have 0 bargaining chips. If I was a team, I'm offering you seconds and thirds until you accept it. Just like what happened to DK. It was a first round plus and it turned into a second round. Right? So you blew out your bargaining chips when you refused to re-sign these people. They know that you're not going to pay them.
Let me give you a hypothetical. Let's say in the next couple of weeks we re-sign Hendricks and does this Bengals GM look really good now, or is it's all just on Hendricks, right? You're just focused on him. So I
sure,
can
you need to re-sign somebody.
I can let Higgins go and all that money we can move to Hendricks and we'd be fine, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So they have options.
Higgins is tagged.
That's true, but you can trade him. He's tagged, but you can still trade him on the tag.
Yeah, you can still trade him.
Especially if Higgins is willing to say verbally to the teams, I'm willing to do a contract with this team you're trading me to. That's a huge slam dunk. And then we've got tons of $30 million, $40 million money to give around to the defense a little bit. So I'm not worried about the Bengals. As long as you've got Burrow and you got Jamar Chase, I think you just need, maybe you can, they did do an offensive line in Cody Ford, 2-year contract. He's not bad. I was looking up his PFF scores and everything. He's not terrible. I just looked it up. So he's not terrible, but I would say, maybe if you give me another lineman so Burrow doesn't get killed as much. But a lot of that Burrow takes responsibility for. He says, on third down, it's like 3rd and 12. He says he does hold the ball too long because he tries to make a play. He says on third downs, I have no problem taking sacks. So a lot of the sacks might not be the line's fault, but at the same time, once again, all the teams in the NFL are looking for a QB first. We've got probably the 3rd best one in the league, so we're fine here.
I like how your defense of the GM was, well, something I did in the past was a good decision. You're not defending your
Yeah.
current decisions. You're like, well, yeah, I had a guy in the past.
Okay, well, I mean, it might
I've
be a
got
sum
Burrow
of,
and Chase.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, as long as I'm trying to say is, being a GM is a sum of the parts. You can't just look at me in a month period.
Right,
You got to look at my.
but the point of the game was talking about your off-season moves. But that's right.
Yeah, but my off-season moves as the Bengals is a sum of parts, okay? I've done really well, so don't blame me for drafting really well and getting all these stud players that I have to play, okay?
All right.
Not
Well, we're towards the end of the pod here, boys. Does anyone have any final thoughts they want to say before we wrap it up?
There's no text in here that says 4 o'clock on Wednesday, by the way. And not in the last, not unless you put in
I'm
the
pretty
last
sure we
3
talked about it
hours.
last week on the pod, like when we were going to do it. But that's okay.
Yeah, and then we texted about it yesterday. But I mean, you didn't respond, so we just assumed it was accidentally missed. But it's fine.
I'm scrolling. I don't see a 4 p.m. on Wednesday in these texts. But
Well, I think it was just like tomorrow work. We're doing Wednesday type thing, same time. But
Well,
I just want to say, I think I want to wrap up with, I don't know what the Panthers are doing at running back. Apparently, they just paid Rico Dowdle $6 million a year to back
the
up
Panthers.
Jonathan Brooks, who backs up Chuba Hubbard. So
Also,
they continue to
a year
spend.
before-
They continue to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to say that. An hour before the podcast started, I texted, we still on for the pod in 1 hour? So that was in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Besides the last 3 hours before I decided to take my afternoon nap.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Vinny, but yeah, I wanted to comment on that while you're still in the conversation. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it. I just don't understand how the Panthers spend their running back money. It just doesn't really make sense to me. You have a lot of holes. You definitely don't fill it with a running back. If you think Jonathan Brooks just is hurt and isn't that good, then fill him in with somebody else while you build the rest of your roster. You do not start with paying running backs.
Yeah.
This is why they're a terrible franchise that'll never get up to the bottom.
The
of the
Giants
NFC South.
did that. They started by paying running backs with Saquon. Look how that worked out for them. Or drafting Saquon when they needed everything else, and now here they are. Speaking of the Giants, last thing, Danny Dimes signs a 1-year, $14 million deal with the Colts. That's got to put Richardson in the hot seat, yeah?
Oh gosh.
I agree.
Kind of an identical player, a guy who can run the ball, who's not a good passer. Like they signed another Richardson.
Yeah.
I saw a great point that just said when you game plan for Richardson and you have a guy like Joe Flacco as the backup, then it's really hard to evaluate how far behind Richardson is. So if Danny Dimes goes into the offseason and just dominates Richardson throughout camp, and then in the regular season, it'll be a very similar system because they're somewhat similar players. Just Richardson is a much, much higher athlete. So yeah, I think it's scary for Richardson, but also like Danny Dimes has proven he kind of sucks. So not that scary. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's more so just in a world where backup QBs usually go for around $6 million. The fact that they gave Danny Dimes 14, they might be looking to use him more than someone else would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Jaguars just re-signed their backup quarterback. He's getting $6.5 million. And Trevor Lawrence isn't exactly a baller, but it's like, okay, well, they obviously don't. Anyway, all right. Yeah. Any other thoughts, boys, or can we wrap this up?
Let's wrap it up.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Thanks, Mitch, for showing up for the 5 minutes that you were here. We'll do a better job of all communicating next time, and yeah, we'll see you ladies next time. Peace.
See ya.
See ya.